Ladies and gentlemen, it's an absolute pleasure and an honor to introduce to you, to welcome to the stage, JP Rangaswami. Welcome.
Thanks a lot.
There you go.
Okay. Well, I can't see any of you, but seems to be a lot of you there. The innovation doesn't happen because somebody designs or builds something. That's the beginning. It happens when customers use it. Right? Adoption is a critical part of innovation. When I think about why people innovate, there seem to be three reasons. One reason is that a scientist sees an observed effect and wants to be able to do something with that effect. Example of that is Velcro. So you see a dog run through bushes, collect material onto its fur. You recognize that you have high adhesion with very little damage if you remove the burr from the fur and you have Velcro. A second possibility is that innovation takes place because there is a perceived need. So when man was inventing the jet engine, it was an innovation on existing engines because you wanted to fly further, which meant you had to reduce the air resistance to be able to fly at heights that were not possible earlier, and the engine had to be changed to be able to cope with that. The propeller would not be able to do it. And some people think that there is a special case of perceived need, which is to speed up evolution. Right? I could allow humans or be part of humanity and take, say, how am I going to get myself bulletproof skin? And bulletproof skin will arrive through natural selection, but it may take a few million years. Alternatively, I could invent Kevlar. Okay? Much of what we see as invention and innovation today can also be described as giving human beings the ability to do things they couldn't do before. So I like thinking of cooking as an external stomach. Okay? I can have a smaller stomach because I can break down the ingredients in food to be able to consume it better, because the point of cooking is to be able to create an external stomach. And man has a stomach much smaller than any other primate of similar size, because we've taken that tissue and built up our brains, because we've outsourced some of our digestion process to using fire or other ways to break it down. I want to give this as a context of saying that when we innovate, we must know why we innovate, who we innovate for. It begins and ends with customers. It does not happen unless there is adoption. And even when there is adoption, you must understand whether you're dealing with observed effects, perceived needs, or speeding up evolution, all of which are valid. A famous economist, a guy called George Gilder, said that every economic era is characterized by new abundances and new scarcities. And if you can figure out what those new abundances and scarcities are, the peculiar circumstances that define that economic era, then you are more likely to be able to build a business that is successful, that will scale. So what I want to do for the next 15 minutes, rapid fire, is to look at life from a customer's viewpoint in order to give the innovators in this audience an opportunity to think about what else they could be doing to transform lives. Okay, everybody is connected. Right? Really, everybody. I mean, we may talk about digital divide, but when you start seeing the figures, the India I left took me 3 years to get a landline. The India of today takes 3 minutes to get a mobile phone. So people are being connected and being connected at speed. When I say everybody, I mean everybody. Okay? Welcome to my cat, Lily. She's a Russian blue, and she knows how to use my iPad. In fact, there is an app for that. Okay? Why is this important? Actually, what's happening with Lily is really important because human history has shown us that the ability to engage with information requires us to know technologies that are not usually democratized. So we couldn't communicate unless we learnt language, and not all humans knew language. It was an elite capability to begin with. Then we invented writing. Again, writing was not available to everybody. When we got to printing, it was not available to everybody. When we got to the point of saying we would start engaging with information much more dramatically, we would build this crazy thing called a keyboard. And we built typewriters. Not everybody could do it. And we took that keyboard and put it into the computer. Right? Until the tablet came along, which is barely 3 years old, 3.5 years old, human beings needed to understand a keyboard to connect, to be able to share, to be able to do things. Right? I learned through typewriters. Lily does not need a typewriter. She does not need a keyboard. The 1-year-old child can engage with information because we've taken the keyboard out. In fact, we've taken more than the keyboard out, because people engage with information now through gesture, through sound and voice, through touch, and soon it will be through sight, through smell. There is no reason why we cannot use our senses to sense things and to be able to respond. Okay? We are almost there. Strange things happen when you remove the keyboard. Now suddenly, you can connect a complaint. Everything in life is now capable of subscribing and publishing. Everything is a node on the network. A tweet can come to me and say, "Excuse me, but 3 of your friends have read me, you haven't read me yet, I'm feeling lonely." Why? Okay? Because the tweet itself is capable of carrying the context of who has read, who has not read, what has happened. So a bill can be followed, not just your friend or a car. A bill can be followed. A complaint can be followed. An order can be followed. Every one of these things is capable of carrying context and being able to publish that context to you, and for you to be able to subscribe to it and to change within that context. Status alerts are become part of life. I have 3 children. My eldest is 27. She got married a couple of months ago. She has no idea what that means. Okay? I had many years to test it. She would come home, walk through, the house phone would ring, she would carry on. Well, not for her, nothing to do with her. My children don't know the meaning of that either. Okay? Neither the traditional telephone nor the traditional television, the means by which communication took place mainly in broadcast mode when I was growing up, mean anything to the new generation. Not even the icon. Right? I don't know where you find a television that looks like that anymore, except in presentations like this. Okay? Because they've just gone very, very quickly. And now it's happening to the PC. You know, people tell me the desktop has died. And I said, what are you worrying about the desktop? The desk has died. Okay? Actually, going into an office which now looks a bit like, Starbucks meets an airport lounge, we don't have the traditional desks anymore. And just before you get comfortable and think it's only the desk that's gone away, the chair has died as well. Okay? Soon, people are saying sitting for 5 hours in a chair is the same as smoking 20 cigarettes. Right? Learn to stand. Otherwise, the company that provides you chairs will be sued for disturbing your health. Okay? Standing on chairs in things that are no longer desks, with no cables, using tools that are no longer computers, using keyboards that are no longer keyboards. Okay? We are making massive changes in a very short space of time, until I look back and say, well, these massive changes have carried on that way. Markets were always open. The Greek word for market is agora, and our fear of open spaces in the English language is agoraphobia. Why? Because the open spaces scare people, but actually markets that took place even thousands of years ago were always about open spaces. But they were not just open. They were about conversations between people, because what makes a relationship take place is the conversational engagement, not the transaction. The transaction follows as a result. The sequence of events should be first relationship, then conversation, then transaction. Transactions happen as a result of a relationship, not the other way around. And we have spent most of the last 50 years believing the transaction is the most important thing. It's an outcome. It is not the core. How do we engage with customers? If we want to understand building things customer-centric, you know how we engage with customers? We ask customers to remember large sequences of numbers that are of no use to them in their lives. They're only of use to the company. So how do you transact? Oh yeah, tell me your account number. Tell me your policy number. Tell me your PNR number. What madness is this? Okay? But we got away with it because it was all supply side. Now the customer has power and we have to start thinking. You know, I've actually called the telephone company up and said, can I please pay my bill? They said, tell me your account number. I said, you don't understand. I want to pay my bill. Tell me your account number. I don't know. I know my name, my address, my telephone number. I know many, many things about my life. The one thing I don't know is this account number. And they say, it's on your bill. Okay? We have to get over this. When we get over it, we have to understand what customers are doing when they're connected. One of my favorite examples is flight car. When customers are connected, they share inventory. Think about it, okay? A group of connected people start thinking, what have I got that I can connect and share? Flight car allows you to share your car that you've just parked in an airport with somebody else who's doing exactly the same journey as you the other way around. So we have millions of people going to airports in cars and then leaving airports on the other side in rental cars. Flight car says, why bother? We'll take the middleman out of that. But it's not just cars. Okay? There are parts of the world where single-person homes exist or people cook for two people, and it's very frustrating to cook for one or two, so you tend to get takeaway or carry out or go to a restaurant. But you can trade the space in your dining table or you can trade your capacity. Meal queue allows you to sell capacity in your kitchen. Effectively saying marginal cost of cooking for 3 or 4 is very similar to cooking for 1 or 2. So trade that extra space. This is not theory, it's not science fiction, it's happening today, right? People are sharing lifts. You know about things like Airbnb. We have Salesforce has a huge conference coming up in 2 weeks' time. When I speak to people coming to the conference and they say, well, hotels are not that easy. What do you use? Some say VRBO and they're the older people. Then say Airbnb, they're the younger people. But this idea that connected people share inventory is an important thing. But it's not just inventory. Okay, people share their preference. People share everything they want to do about their recommendations. I'm interested in knowing what my friends think about stuff. But I can't find out in the past. Today, when I'm connected, I can. They can share specifications of design. They can share pretty much anything they want. They can share ideas, recipes, right? Formulae for being able to do things. They share skills to be able to solve problems individually and in groups. One of the most important things they share is their time. When we had, in March, a couple of years ago, the Tohoku earthquake and tsunami, people lost their lives, a real tragedy. People lost physical goods, a real tragedy. But one of the hardest things that they lost was memories. Okay? And you've lived through many, many things, and then what you've got left, small things you got left, like your photographs, are all sodden, water damaged. Photo Rescue was a collection, a community which said, scan the photograph, and we will use Photoshop anywhere in the world to help recover your memories. Human beings are essentially a connected group of people, and when we've given them the chance to reconnect, they share pretty much everything they have. And that's one of the, you can think of connectivity as an abundance, sharing as an abundance, privacy as a scarcity, loyalty as a scarcity, because those are the sort of changes that are taking place today. And when we build services, when we design services, we have to understand these shifts. When we share information about who we are, where we are, what we are, when we are. This is a file that goes with it's an EXIF file. It's what gets shared when you upload a photograph. Okay, there's no cost to your sharing it, but the filtering value when it comes to saying, can I find all the things with this location about this subject, using this tool, done by this person at this time in this location, all these things start coming because the metadata of information now has auto-date and time-stamping, auto-geolocation, auto-identification, at least for one factor. We also share our network. We are able, with social logins, to be able to share who our friends are. And that's not trivial, because it lets you know what your friends think of things you're watching. You know, what you're reading, what you're listening to, what you plan to watch, what you plan to eat. Every experience you have the ability to augment it. At work, who else has read this document? Who is planning to read this document? At home, who's planning to go to see this film? You know, I'm a retarded hippie. I love the music of the 60s and early 70s. So when I go to a concert, I'm today able to find out which of my friends are going to that concert, right? To choose between Saturday and Sunday, to say, oh, these friends are going on Saturday, more of my friends are going on Sunday, I'll go on Sunday. This was not possible before. It is a function of the changed environment where we can connect and share. When we do that, if everything is connected to the network, my cat and my complaint and my dog and me, there's a lot of noise. And we have to learn to separate the signal from the noise, because in the past we used to look at a reflection of the moon in the water and believe it is the sun. We have to be able to change that paradigm. We have to understand how to get to people as individuals. Think about segments of one, right? If I'm standing next to somebody else who was born on the same day and we went to the same school and we lived next to each other, you know the three things we have in common? Just those three things. There's nothing else in our life that's common. Just that we were born on the same day and we went to the same school and we lived next to each other. So marketing to us, when you only have that information, is not marketing to two similar people. It's to two completely different people who happen to share three random things. Right? We have to understand personalization when we build services. At the last elections, the US presidential elections, somebody who understood what it means to listen to real-time information at every point of voting, a guy called Nate Silver, along with that famous political commentator Bob Dylan, were the only two people who called a landslide for Obama. Everybody else, all these pollsters with hundreds of years of science, fundamentally called it wrong. Why? Because they were using traditional tools rather than dealing with the abundance of real-time voting intention that was available, and aggregating not a focus group, not a sample, not a subset, but everything. We can listen to everything because it's possible. We might as well. The problem with listening to everything, because there is an incredible array of noise about your intentions, your activities, your buying and selling intentions, pricing, negotiating, service quality, it doesn't matter, but that causes logjam. Yeah? You suddenly need to be able to filter from that noise. If you can't filter, you're not going to make sense. Right? Clay Shirky, one of my favorite professors, said there is no such thing as information overload, there is only filter failure. Right? If you want to take your jobs as innovators seriously, understand that customers are looking for filters. Right? There is a lot of noise out there. In that noise, if you can provide simplicity and convenience, you could be a bit humorous about Steve Jobs and said when the world was talking about 2 buttons on a mouse, he went with 1. When the world convinced themselves there was 1 button on the mouse, he went with none. Okay? Taking friction and latency out of engagement processes in order to give customers what they want in a personalized form on the device they have, at the time they have, in the location they have, is the closest you can get to a simple recipe for innovation. I could spend the rest of the day talking about it, but I'm not going to, and anyway I'm more interested in the questions you ask than the answers I give. But the premise, what I want to be able to leave you really thinking about, is that we've got to build better filters. In building better filters, you can route information, because it is unreasonable to think that we want all the same information on our watches, on our glasses, on our wristbands, on our laptops, on our tablets, because that's not the way life works, right? You need to be able to segment where that information goes, because it's a hierarchy. It is one thing for me to be able to take, a phone out and look quietly on the side of a party. It's another thing if I took out my tablet and I did this. Social expectations matter. So take care about it. Learn how to use the voting intentions of people, what your social network things. Learn to understand to do all this safely and with the person in mind. None of these things is particularly difficult because it's like saying we've got to move away from something that looks at the artist to look at something that is the fan, right? The reason I'm going to end with that is to really get you guys to understand what abundance means. There are many, many musicians in this world, but the last time I looked, there are many more fans than there are musicians. If you want to build a business for the fan, not just the musician. Thank you for your time.
Wow, thank you, JP. Thank you very much.